February 19th, 1944. North Atlantic, 0317 hours. 400 miles southwest of Ireland, the sea is black, heaving, and brutally cold. Inside U-264, the air is thick with diesel fumes and sweat. Kapitan-Leutnant Hartwig Lux grips the periscope handle so hard his knuckles glow white in the red emergency lighting. Drops of condensation slide down the optics as the U-boat rises toward periscope depth, the hull groaning softly under the pressure. "Periscope tiefe." "Hold it," he says quietly. The boat steadies. For a moment, the only sound is the electric motors humming and the faint ring of cutlery somewhere aft. You can almost feel everyone holding their breath. Lux eases the periscope up. A thin column of freezing Atlantic air snakes into the control room. He presses his eye to the cup. Blackness. Then a shadow on the horizon. A stubby silhouette, too small to be a cruiser, too short to be a fleet destroyer. He adjusts the focus. "Escort," he mutters. "A little one." He turns the scope. Another shape, and another. Small warships, low in the water, cross-hatched against the pale smear of winter cloud. British, maybe Americans. They're spread out in a loose circle around the convoy U-264 has been stalking for hours. Lux lowers the scope with a faint, humorless smile. They used to joke about ships like that in the bars at Lorient and Saint-Nazaire. Little corvettes, sloops, the Allies' toy navy. U-boats had slipped through their screens for years. "Nothing we haven't seen before," he tells himself. "We've hunted worse than this." He doesn't know it yet, but the game has changed. A ping slices through the hull, sharp, metallic. It seems to vibrate in your teeth. The control room goes still. Then another ping, louder, closer. The hydrophone operator turns, eyes wide under his headphones. "Herr Kalun, active sonar, bearing green 70, fast approach." Lux glances at the depth gauge, 60 meters, too shallow to hide. He feels the thin film of sweat already on his neck turn cold. "Ruhe im Boot," he says. Silence in the boat. The electric motors wind down to a whisper. Men freeze where they stand. Somewhere aft, someone muffles a cough into a sleeve. Above them, through black, freezing waves, a small, ugly ship is turning in, sonar beams sweeping like a searchlight through the water. On the surface, HMS Starling's bridge is a sheet of spray and wind. Captain Frederick John Walker braces himself against the railing, peering into the darkness. His face is raw from cold and salt, his eyes red-shot from months of sleepless hunts. Beside him, the ASDIC operator's voice crackles over the bridge speaker. "Contact steady, sir. Range closing. Good echo. Definitely a U-boat." Walker doesn't hesitate. "Helm, bring us onto the bearing. Prepare Hedgehog." Down on the Starling's forecastle, sailors in duffel coats and steel helmets stand beside a strange circular frame of stubby launch tubes, angled slightly up and out over the bow. Beneath them, 24 slender bombs sit waiting, each capped with a rounded, contact-fused warhead. They look almost harmless, like oversized thermos bottles. Lux has never seen one. Inside U-264, the boat shudders slightly as the unseen escort's bow wave rolls overhead. "Prepare for depth charges," someone whispers. The men know that sound. The crash of propellers swirling above, the ping of sonar, the moment of gut-twisting silence before the thunder begins. Depth charges explode behind you. They roll off the stern. They boom and crack and slam the hull from the sides. You can sometimes ride them out, if you're deep enough, if you're lucky. But this time, The first sound they hear is wrong. A distant series of soft thumps, almost polite, like someone slamming a heavy door 20 meters away. The sound comes from ahead of the boat, not behind. Lux frowns. "Wat war das?" he asks.
The hydrophone operator's face has gone pale. "Multiple splashes, sir. Forward. Many. 24, maybe more." On the surface, HMS Starling's bow spits fire. The Hedgehog mounting erupts in a flat cough of propellant charges, hurling 24 stubby projectiles in a wide oval pattern out in front of the ship. Each one spins as it arcs, stabilizing its fall. They hit the sea with synchronized plunks, carving a dotted line of white splashes across the black water. They sink fast. Unlike depth charges, there is no time delay fuse, no preset depth. They sink until they hit something, and if they don't hit anything, they never explode. That's what makes them so terrifying below. Inside U-264, the men look at each other in the dim red light. No roar, no delayed thunder, just silence. Lux's mind races. His charts, his tactics, everything he knows about depth charge patterns, none of it matches this. He realizes with a cold, clear shock that the Allies are doing something new. He doesn't know the name of the weapon yet. He doesn't know that in a few seconds, 24 warheads are sinking past his hull, searching like blind fingers through the dark. He only knows that the tiny escort they once laughed at has just fired something different. He opens his mouth to shout an order. That's when the first explosion comes. Not from the side, not above. From directly under the boat. The entire hull kicks upward as if a giant has punched it from below. Lights flicker. Men are thrown from their bunks. A shower of rust and paint dust rains from the ceiling. Then a second blast, closer. Somewhere forward, metal screams. The U-boat has just met the Hedgehog. Men are hurled against bulkheads, faces smashing into valves and handwheels. A glass gauge bursts in a spray of shards and alcohol. The lights flicker, then steady, dim and red. Somewhere forward, a pipe has let go. A thin, high hiss begins. Seawater under pressure, forcing its way in. "Verletzte!" "Any wounded?" someone shouts. A stoker staggers up from the deck, blood running down his cheek. Another man clutches a broken wrist. One of the younger sailors just stands there, eyes huge, as a slow rain of rust flakes drifts down like brown snow. On the bulkhead, the depth gauge needle trembles. "Bow planes, compensate," the diving officer barks. "Keep her level." They've been depth charged before. U-boat veterans know the tune of the ocean trying to crush them. The rolling series of booms, some near, some far, the shriek of metal, then the long, boiling quiet while the convoy and its escorts pass overhead. This is not that. Kapitän Leutnant Hartwig Lux braces himself on the periscope standard, ears ringing. The explosion under the keel felt surgical. A single savage punch right into the belly of the boat. Then another. No cascading pattern, no long drum roll of charges. Just isolated, precise impacts, like someone out there knows exactly where you are. He catches the grim eye of his chief engineer. Both men are thinking the same thought. What in God's name are they firing at us? On the surface, HMS Starling is already circling back. Spray lashes the bow. The ship's searchlights are doused. Walker hunts in the dark, guided only by the thin, ghostly line on the ASDIC display, and the calm, controlled voice from the sound room. "Contact damage, sir. Still strong. Depth about 140 feet. Bearing, red 35. He's trying to go deeper." Walker's jaw tightens. He's been here before. So many promising echoes.
so many near misses. Depth charge after depth charge thundering into the abyss, only to surface later as an oil slick that might be a kill or just a ruse. He glances forward toward the Hedgehog mounting, the black outlines of the launch spigots ghostly in the dim light. This is different. Gun around onto his new course. Keep the contact. Reload all Hedgehog spigots, he says. We're not letting this one go. To understand why the men inside U-264 are so stunned, you have to go back, before the new weapon, before the tiny escorts became hunters. Back to when the U-boats really did laugh. 1940, the happy time. In the bars of Kiel, Wilhelmshaven, Lorient, young officers in crisp black uniforms clink glasses under the admiring gaze of nurses and clerks and factory girls. Their white cap bands read Unterseeflottille and Unterbootschule. Above them on the walls are the chalked-up tonnage tallies: British freighter, Norwegian tanker, Dutch liner. The numbers climb weekly. They pose for photographs with their crews, leather coats, sea caps cocked just so, cigarettes slowly burning, the hunters of the Atlantic. Out there on the convoy's ragged edges, the first Allied escorts are slow, short-ranged, and few. Little flower-class corvettes with odd names, like HMS Bluebell, HMS Erebus, ships cobbled together from peacetime merchant designs. Their tiny bows plunge into the waves, decks swept clean by green water. Men on board are permanently soaked, permanently exhausted, permanently seasick. From a U-boat's periscope, these are not warships, they are annoyances. Type C-7 commanders like Günther Prien, Otto Kretschmer, Joachim Schepke learn the pattern by heart. Slip in at night, surface, use speed and silhouette to become invisible. Torpedo the fat merchants. Dive when a destroyer comes nosing around. Ride out the depth charges. Come back tomorrow. On patrol logs, the escorts are dismissed with a kind of professional contempt. They are noisy, clumsy. Their depth charges are set too shallow. Their sonar uncertain. Most of their attacks end with the same anticlimax: roaring explosions heard fading astern, then nothing. A shaken U-boat crew picks themselves up from the deck plates, wipes the dust from their faces, and smirks weakly in the red gloom. Engländer, someone mutters. They waste more explosives than they sink ships. The arrogance isn't entirely unfounded. Early in the war, depth charges are a blunt instrument. Rolled off racks or hurled by K-guns, they detonate at the depths guessed by men watching a flickering sonar trace. They explode behind and beside the target, sometimes close, often not. For every U-boat sunk, several slip away, battered but alive. On the other side of the ocean, that failure has a body count. In the gray offices of the Admiralty and the Western Approaches Command, grim-faced officers watch the tonnage graphs. Month after month, the lines run the wrong way. Merchant ships going down in the North Atlantic faster than the shipyards can replace them. Behind each number, thousands of men. Food for Britain, fuel, ammunition, survival. It can't go on. Someone has to make the little escorts frightening. They call it a spigot mortar system. The sailors who will use it will give it a better name later: Hedgehog. The idea is revolutionary in its simplicity. Instead of dropping charges behind the ship where ASDIC loses contact in the noisy wake, throw them ahead. Keep the sonar beam locked on the U-boat right up to the moment the projectiles hit the water. And make them contact-fused. No more guessing at depth, no more random thunder in the deep. Each 65-pound projectile will sink silently, arcing down through the dark in a tight pattern. If one of them physically strikes the pressure hull of a submarine, it will detonate, its torpex filler smashing a jagged hole in the steel. If they miss, nothing. For the Allied escorts, it's unnerving at first. A volley is fired, the crew holds its breath, and then silence. No heroic explosion, no plume of water. Only the sonar report will tell them whether they have failed or succeeded. For the men inside U-boats, it is something much worse. There is no warning rumble, no rising crescendo of blast to brace for, just the creeping knowledge that, somewhere above, a ship has just thrown an invisible minefield forward into your path. The first real tests at sea are clumsy, uncertain. Escort captains are wary of unproven gadgets. But then, in the heaving gray of the North Atlantic, one day in late 1942, a small destroyer tracks a U-boat, lines up the contact, and lets fly. The pattern splashes down. There is a long, long pause. Then, one sharp crack, a single, mute pillar of white water. The sonar contact vanishes. No oil slick, no survivors. Just absence where a predator used to be. Word spreads through the escort flotillas. There is a new tool, and a head-throwing weapon that turns those toy corvettes into executioners. But deep inside their steel cylinders, the U-boat men don't really understand. Not yet. Not until nights like this one, under the wild winter Atlantic, with U-264 bucking under unseen blows, and a captain realizing his playbook has just been set on fire. "Depth 150! She's starting to go down by the bow," the diving officer calls in U-264. A gauge needle jiggles into the red. "Blow forward tanks," Luke sparks. "All ahead emergency! We have to level her or we're finished!" Compressors whine. Air screams into ballast tanks. Somewhere distant, a rivet pops with a little metallic gunshot. For a heartbeat, it seems to work. The descent slows. Then another soft series of thumps filters down from above. On HMS Starling, Walker grips the bridge rail. "Steady, steady, stand by, fire." Once again, the Hedgehog throws its deadly ring of bombs into the dark, ahead of the plunging bow. Inside U-264, nobody knows it yet. They only feel the boat lunging forward, wounded, trying desperately to claw for depth. They only know that whatever the little escorts have just fired once, they can fire again. The second Hedgehog salvo is already falling. U-264 charges forward blind, her hull creaking, her bow heavy. In the control room, men cling to valves and handrails as the deck tilts a few degrees steeper. "Depth 170, 180, still going down," the diving officer shouts, fighting the controls. "More air forward, keep her up," Look snaps. Compressors scream. The boat shudders as trapped water in the forward compartments sloshes against bulkheads. Somewhere in the bow, a man wades ankle-deep through icy water, numb feet slipping on the metal deck. Then, in the middle of that chaos, comes the strangest sound. A series of small, distant thuds, close enough to hear, too muffled to be depth charges, like heavy objects hitting water. 1, 2, a dozen, more. Above them, unseen, 24 steel bombs punch into the Atlantic, vanish beneath the white splashes, and begin their silent descent. Inside the U-boat, the hydrophone operator has thrown his headphones off, as if he can escape what's coming just by not listening. He can't. The first detonation slams into the bow, directly under the forward torpedo room. The shock wave blasts through the hull like a hammer through a tin can. Light bulbs explode. Men are flung against the ceiling. Bones crack. A rack of spare torpedoes shifts with a horrifying metallic groan. A jet of seawater punches straight through a seam, a screaming white lance, instantly soaking everything in a fine, stinging spray. Wassereinbruch vorne! Flooding forward! Someone roars. Seconds later, a second Hedgehog finds its mark, slightly aft. The U-boat bucks again, this time rolling to starboard. The control room plunges into momentary darkness as the emergency lights flicker, then glow a sickly red. The bow is no longer just heavy. It is falling. Depth 200, 210, 220. She won't answer, Herr Kelun. The diving officer yells, fighting the useless controls. Bow planes unresponsive. Lux feels it in his gut, a slow, sickening elevator drop. The sea isn't water anymore. It's weight. 1,000 tons of it pressing down on his steel tube, daring it to go 1 meter too deep. Stop the descent or we're dead, he says, voice low, almost conversational. Options flash in his mind. Blowing all ballast now might shoot them to the surface like a cork, directly in front of the escort's guns. Staying deep means crushing pressure and more Hedgehog salvos. He has seconds to decide. On the surface, HMS Starling's Aztec operator watches the green trace on his screen blur, dip, then deepen. Target's going down fast, sir. 200 feet and still descending. Strong, broken echo. He's damaged. Walker stares into the dark sea ahead of his bows, jaw clenched. It's working. He's always told his men, the way to beat the wolf is to hound it. Never give it time to think. Never give it time to hide. Keep the contact. Keep pressing. Force the captain into a mistake. He steps to the voice pipe. Signal the group. Starling attacking. Stand off. Maintain screen. We have him. Below, U-264 is losing the fight. In the forward torpedo room, a man in a soaked sweater tries to wedge himself into a corner as seawater pours through a ragged hole in the hull the size of a fist. Every attempt to plug it with mattress stuffing and wooden wedges is stripped away by the sheer force of the water. It isn't a dramatic Hollywood geyser. It's worse. It's a relentless, knife-cold stream, inches wide, impossible to stop. Behind it is the entire Atlantic. In the control room, the chief engineer's face is gray. Herr Kalun, if we go below 250 with this flooding... He doesn't finish the sentence. He doesn't need to. The men have heard the stories. Boats that went too deep, hulls crushed like eggshells, no survivors, no wreckage, just a brief popping crash, and then silence. Lux takes a breath that tastes of oil and fear. Prepare to surface, he orders. The words hang in the air. Some of the crew flinch as if struck. To surface under escort attack is to step out of the shadows into a firing squad. It's the admission every hunter dreads. Today, we are the prey. Herr Cologne, the diving officer starts. We can't hold her, Lux cuts him off. If we stay down, she'll implode. Better a fighting chance on the surface than a steel coffin down here. He straightens, regaining that brittle U-boat officer calm. Alarm! Alle Mann klar zum Auftauchen! All hands prepare to surface! Klaxons bleat. Men scramble. The chief engineer slams open valves. High-pressure air thunders into the main ballast tanks. The boat shudders, bubbles roaring up along the hull as U-264 fights her plunge and begins to rise. On HMS Starling, Walker hears the ASDIC report change. Contact rising, sir. Fast. Depth 150, 120, 90. Walker nods once. He's blowing. Gun screws standby, star shells ready. Make sure the others know we may have a U-boat surfacing. I want every barrel we have pointed at that patch of sea. The North Atlantic air above is a howling, freezing chaos. Wind-flogged waves hammer the tiny escort's bow, gray and white and merciless. In that maelstrom, one patch of sea starts to boil. You can almost feel the pressure reversing. Seconds ago, hundreds of tons of water were crushing down on the hull. Now the boat is fighting its way back, charging upwards like a trapped animal. Inside U-264, men cling to stanchions as the deck tips violently the other way. Depth 60, 40, 20. Look snatches his cap from a hook. He knows what he's about to see. He also knows what he's about to lose. Deck guns useless, he tells himself bitterly. We're not in 1940 anymore. They'll rip us to pieces before we can load a shell. He thinks of the posters back in Lorient, the medals, the speeches about the invincible U-boat Waffe, the little escorts, laughingstock of the wardrooms. And here he is, being driven to the surface by one of them. "Stand by conning tower hatch! On my order!" The bow punches through the surface in an eruption of foam and spray. Night explodes into blinding whiteness as star shells burst overhead, bathing the scene in harsh, ghostly light. The sea glitters silver. U-264's black hull glistens like the back of a drowning whale as she breaks into the storm, decks awash. On her port bow, maybe 1,500 yards away, a shape looms out of the spray. A small, sharp-bowed sloop, bows slicing into the waves, superstructure lit from below by the glare of the star shells. Tiny, ugly, bristling with guns. The kind of escort they used to laugh at. Now every weapon on its decks is turning toward them. Looks wrenches open the conning tower hatch. A knife of wind and ice slashes into his face as he hauls himself up, sea spray instantly soaking his coat. He blinks against the freezing blast and the blinding white light. For the first time, Kapitänleutnant Hartwig lays eyes on HMS Starling. He sees the twin 4-inch guns already tracking his boat. He sees the clusters of depth charge racks. He sees, just behind the bow, the strange circular mounting of tubes that fired the invisible weapon that slammed into his hull from below. His mouth is salt dry. This is what killed us, he realizes. He opens his mouth to shout an order, scuttle charges, abandon ship, something. But the night answers first. The little escort speaks in flame. From HMS Starling's bow, the forward 4-inch gun erupts in a sheet of orange. The blast lights the gun crew in frozen silhouettes, helmets, greatcoats, ramming staves, as the shell streaks across the foaming gap. It hits just short, throwing a geyser of water over U-264's bow. The next round lands closer, a shriek of steel that tears a gash along the casing, showering the conning tower in fragments. On the bridge of U-264, flinches as a splinter sings past his ear and punches a neat, vicious hole in the metal behind him. He ducks by instinct, water and metal hammering at his face. "Flak ready! Man the AA!" someone screams below. Two sailors scramble onto the wet, heaving deck, stumbling toward the 20mm flak mount. The sea claws at their legs, trying to pull them under. One slips, vanishes for a moment beneath the surge, then reappears, gasping, fingers clawing for the rail. In the glare of star shells, they look like insects crawling across the back of a dying beast. On Starling's bridge, Walker sees them. "Cease fire on the hull," he snaps. "Aim for the conning tower and guns only. We want prisoners, not a massacre." His orders whip down to the guns. The next salvo is deliberate, tighter. A 4-inch shell slams into the base of U-264's conning tower, bursting in a savage blossom of steel and sparks. The flak mount disappears in spray and smoke. When the water falls away, one of the men is simply gone. The other lies unmoving, half in, half out of the Atlantic. Feels the deck lurch under his boots as the boat takes on more water. Every impact seems to echo up through the steel into his bones. This is pointless. He rips his throat raw, shouting down into the conning tower. "Stop engines! All stop! Scuttle the boat! All hands abandon ship!" The words taste like ash. For years, U-boat captains imagined going down with their ships rather than surrendering. The posters, the speeches, the nighttime toasts in French ports all promised an iron resolve, a warrior's end. But when the sea itself is rushing in under your feet and white-hot shrapnel is lancing the air around you, theory melts. Men pour up the ladder from below, faces pale in the star-shell light. Some are already stripping off boots, knowing they'll be dead weight in the water. Others clutch at life jackets, eyes wild, darting between the escorts' blazing guns and the black, icy sea. "Springen! Jump!" someone screams. They do. One after another, dark shapes leap from the U-boat's pitching deck and vanish into the heaving Atlantic. For a moment, each man is frozen in midair by the harsh white light, arms flung wide, eyes shut, before the ocean slams into him like a wall. You can almost feel that impact in your own chest. Water so cold it steals your breath, crushes the air from your lungs in one vicious second. On Starling, searchlights snap on, white beams spearing across the waves. "Cease fire! Cease fire!" Walker orders, as it becomes clear the U-boat is done for. "They're abandoning her! Stand by boats and scrambling nets! Get those men out of the water!" The guns fall silent, leaving only the roar of the wind and the distressed screams of men scattered across the waves. It's a brutal, jarring shift from killing to saving in the space of heartbeats. HMS Starling swings closer, careful not to run anyone down. Depth charge racks loom like black teeth above the waterline, shadowed against the searchlights. German hands reach for British nets. For some, the shock is almost as great as the attack itself. A sailor who minutes earlier was cursing these toy ships now looks up from the freezing water and sees one towering above him, crew leaning out, arms extended. "Come on, Jerry, take my hand!" someone shouts in English. Rough palms grab rough palms. Blue wool uniforms meet sodden gray feldgrau. One of U-264's machinists hauls himself up the net, fingers numb, legs dead weights. As he flops onto Starling's deck, he collapses on his back, chest heaving, staring up into the harsh white glare. Framed in that light is a face he's never imagined up close. A British petty officer's cheeks, raw from cold, helmet askew. The man is grinning down at him, absurdly. "Welcome aboard, Fritz," he says, half a laugh, half a gasp. "You gave us a fine chase." More U-boat men are dragged out of the dark. Some sob incontrollably from shock and cold. Others stare blankly, eyes already empty, minds somewhere below in the red-lit pressure hull. Hartwig looks is among the last to be pulled from the sea. As he's hauled over the rail, he rolls onto his side, coughing up brine, fumbling automatically for the cap that is no longer on his head. When he staggers upright, two ratings grip his arms, more to steady him than to restrain him. He looks across Starling's deck. Hedgehog. Up close, it doesn't look like much. A crude circular frame, angled up over the bow. The launch spigots are still smoking faintly, scorched by the propellant of the two volleys that tore into his hull. It could be a strange piece of scaffolding, an unfinished bit of pipework. This did that? He stares, stunned, as if sheer willpower might turn it into something else, something less efficient, less final. One of the British officers notices his gaze. "That's the chap that got you," the man says conversationally, nodding toward the mounting. His accent's clipped, almost cheerful, but his eyes are hard and tired. "Hedgehog, nasty little fellow, isn't he?" Look swallows, throat burning. How does it work?" he manages in halting English. The officer shrugs. "It throws a ring of bombs in front of us, not behind. They only go off if they hit you. If you hear nothing, we've missed. If you hear something—" He lets the sentence die. Looks doesn't need it finished. He heard it. He felt it. The precise, brutal shocks under his keel. The way the familiar depth-charge drum roll had been replaced by clinical blows. He glances back toward the darkness where U-264 is dying. Under the searchlights he can see her now, settling by the bow, stern rising, the white 264 on her conning tower already half submerged. Water sluices down her decks in great sheets as she slides under, partly scuttled by her own crew, partly beaten down by the escort's new teeth. The Atlantic takes her without ceremony. In another minute, all that's left is a patch of churning water and a thin, ugly slick of oil. Behind looks, one of his surviving petty officers mutters, half to himself, half to the night, "We used to laugh at these little ships." Nobody answers. They're all staring at the weapon that ended their war.